Well, you saw the thumbnail and you read the title, so inevitably you know exactly what this video is going to be about. This video is pretty much going to be just a story about how I made a very expensive mistake, what exactly I did, and then how I learned from it, and what exactly the things I took away from it to hopefully become a better trader in the future. So if you watch this video, hopefully you can pick up a thing or two about learning from my mistakes, and hopefully this video can spare you from making the same mistakes I did. But before I tell you exactly how I made my mistake, I sort of have to explain how I was even able to make that mistake. Like what events transpired to even put me in this position to lose roughly 25% of my portfolio at the time in one trade. Let's take a trip down memory lane. I believe it was 2018, the very early stages of 2018. Now, imagine, if you will, a slightly younger, stupider version of the person that you're watching on the screen right now. And at this time in my trading career, I was like 2 or 3 years deep. I was pretty much only just doing stocks from basically what my dad had told me and taught me. And I started to learn everything about options. I became obsessed with learning everything about options because my account wasn't that big at the time. At the time, I think my account was like 6 or 7 grand. Just to give you some context about what I was dealing with, I was not a whole lot of money. So therefore, I was interested in options because the whole catch with options is it requires less money and you can make more money, right? That's kind of how that works. However, if you know anything about options or have tried to learn anything about options, you know that those things are so confusing and there are just so many things that you need to learn before you even touch an option, like time decay, strike price, in the money, out of the money, what the heck a call is or a put. And then one day it clicked, right? I became very confident in options, okay? So that's step one. Step two, now imagine a slightly older version of the younger version that I was just talking about. So like maybe a couple months later after I discovered options and, perfected them, so to speak. Clearly I haven't perfected them. So that slightly older version of me is now becoming interested in day trading. I think being interested in day trading is literally something every investor goes through at some point in their life. It's like just it's a phase. And I was just at that phase. And so I was learning everything about day trading. I was learning about candlesticks, MACD lines, how to read charts, candlestick patterns, blah, 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 you name it. If you know anything about day trading, that's what I was doing a couple months after I had learned a lot about options. So fast forward a month or two, and we're in like May or June of 2018, right? I have all of this options knowledge chock full in my head. I've got all of this day trading knowledge just sitting up here. And so naturally, I started to day trade options. Now, if this is where you think I'm going to lose all of my money, you're wrong. As I mentioned a little bit ago, at the time, my portfolio was around $6,000 to $7,000. And so began the journey of me day trading options around mid-May 2018. Now, granted, at the time, it was moderately difficult for me to day trade because at the time, I had a full-time job. I don't anymore. And so I would go into work, and luckily my job gave me a lot of freedom. So I was able to do it, but I would really only be able to do it for maybe a half hour to an hour, which is fine because like the first couple hours of the day are the most volatile anyway. So that's basically, I'm doing all of this at work and I start to make a couple $100 here or there, that's good stuff. And then, a couple trades roll in and I make like 4 figures. I'm making like a grand here, a grand there, because there's that kind of money in options. Like it's a joke. And while all of this is going on, while I'm day trading options, I also start getting into playing options on earnings because stocks can move a tremendous amounts due to earnings. And so I would start buying options on earnings on if I would think that, the stock would go up or down. And that was very much gambling. And I don't recommend it. It can be done, but it is very stressful and you will lose money. You'll make money, but you'll also lose money. I remember one trade specifically, and the reason why I remember it was because it was my first five-figure profit, and it was on a earnings call. So, and I remember it. It was a, I believe it was a Monday or Tuesday, and Canada Goose was reporting earnings after hours, and I put in an options order for the stock to go up. I think at like 350, and they reported their earnings at like 4:30, 5 o'clock, something like that. The stock skyrocketed like 30%. And I had put in way too much money in that options call because over this period of time, which I'm going to start talking about, I was making way too much money for the time frame that I was in. And so I think what I ended up doing was I ended up chucking in like 6 grand in options into Canada Goose on a naked call option, meaning if the stock didn't go up, I was pretty much screwed. And sure enough, luckily it did. I walk in to work the next morning because again, still have a full-time job. Pull up Robinhood and I'm just sitting there waiting for the market to open because options don't update after hours or pre-market. They literally only operate between 9:30 and 4. So this whole time I'm like, I don't know how much I'm actually going to be up. And so sure enough, 9:30 hits, nothing. The options haven't updated yet, 9:31. And then I see like I'm up like $10,000 or $11,000. And so obviously, luckily I was smart enough. And I was like, get out. I'm selling all of this. I'm cashing in my profits and I am getting out of here. So by that time, it's like Tuesday morning at 9:35. 25-year-old me has just made $10,000. To put that into perspective, at the time, that full-time job, in order to make around $10,000, at least of take-home pay, easily 3.5 to maybe 4 months. And I made that in about 3 minutes. And I remember specifically closing out of that trade, realizing how much money I had just made, standing up from my desk and walking down to the cafe to get a cup of coffee. And the whole time, like my head is down. I'm like, I can only imagine I was talking to myself. I was shaking my head in disbelief because I'm like, that's a joke. And to be honest, it was a joke. What I was doing was literally laughable. So why am I telling you all of this? I thought this video was about your biggest loss. Exactly. I'm telling you all of this because I had to explain to you how I was put in this position to lose 25% of my portfolio. Because what had happened over these, now granted, all of this money that I was making was literally within like 4 to 6 weeks. I had grown my portfolio from like $6,000 to $7,000 all the way up to I think around $40,000 in not even 2 months. And so the point that I'm trying to get across is the fact that I devalued money so quickly. Like $1,000 was now in my mind the equivalent of literally $20. Like I did not care if I lost 1,000 here, if I lost 1,000 there, because I knew that I would make it somewhere else. Like I literally did not care if I lost $1,000. Meanwhile, 4 to 6 weeks ago, I literally only had $6,000. And so I was just treating money as if I just got super wealthy super quickly, which is basically how I was able to lose $12,180 in one trade. Thank you, Amazon. It all started when I bought some Leap Amazon call options that were expiring in June of 2019. So I had around a year for that stock to do something for me. So I bought 4 to 5 contracts at the 2,700 strike price for Amazon, expiring June 15th. Of all of those 4 to 5 contracts, they totaled $12,180. Now, mind you, this was back in 2018, and Amazon was it. Amazon was this juggernaut. It just did nothing but go up for literally no reason. Like this was Amazon pre-3000. This was Amazon, I think, pre-2000. This was the stock, and there wasn't anything else that was moving like Amazon. So I'm like, this is a sure bet. Because full disclosure, the way that I trade options, I don't hold options until the expiration date. I trade options like stocks. So I don't like to keep them, up until like 3 months prior. Like I don't want them depending on what I'm trying to do. So I basically just wait for the option to increase in value, just like a stock. And then once I see a profit that I'm happy with, I I sell it to some other schmuck, and I take my profits and rinse and repeat. So that was the plan. And so shortly after I acquired like $12,000 in those options, it's like August, nothing really is happening. And then for whatever reason, the whole stock market decides to, be like, hey, we're going to go down for a little bit now. Pretty much all of September, the entire market just starts crashing. And then it keeps crashing into October. And I specifically remember one night in October when I looked at my phone and I saw how much I was down. Granted, I don't know how much I was down, but if I had to imagine, it's easily $5,000 to $6,000. And I was not home. I was actually on a work trip, believe it or not. So I was hundreds of miles away from home. But I remember sitting in that hotel room, looking at my phone, and I'm like, do I cut my losses, or is the stock going to go back up? Because I still have time. I still have like 8 months. And so naturally, being a young, hopeful investor, I'm like, yeah, of course Amazon's going to go back up. Why wouldn't it? Well, October, stock market doesn't really do a whole lot. It's still down on the dumps. Stock market tries to come back in November. And then if you recall, if you were in the market back in 2018, do you remember what happened in December of 2018? We sort of had like a flash crash, right? Where we ended up finding our bottom on December 24th, Christmas Eve. Yeah, well, I was still holding Amazon into that. So it's clearly the wrong direction that I wanted the stock to go. And for those of you wondering, my strike price was $2,700 for Amazon. And because of the crash in September, October, as well as December, Amazon ended up, I think, being below $2,000. So, and for those of you that don't really know how options work, there's this thing called time decay, where the closer you get to the expiration date, mine was June 15th, and every day that the stock doesn't get to your strike price, a little bit of what we call premium in the options market comes off. So you basically lose money if your stock does not go up and reach your strike price by a certain time. So that's how I was able to lose basically all of this, because basically once 2019 hit, I was sort of locked in. Like I had lost almost all of it. I was probably down 10 grand. And I'm like, well, at this point, what's losing another 2 grand gonna do? Like, I don't really care. I mean, I did, but like there wasn't anything I could do. So I'm like, at this point, it's just a $2,000 gamble on if it'll come up a little bit. And it didn't really come up. It didn't really do anything. And so I don't remember when I ended up selling them, but I sold 4 contracts for $28. Sold them for $7 a piece. So out of the $12,180 that I put in, I returned $28. Not too bad if you ask me. So what did I learn from this whole process? Well, for starters, have a plan, which is obviously easier said than done. But to my knowledge, this was the first time that a trade had really ever gone south on me, like big time. I mean, in the past, whenever trades would go south, I would still be able to recoup more than half of whatever I put in. But this trade just completely just blindfolded me and hit me with a sock full of quarters, because I had never experienced it before. And so I didn't know what to do. It was uncharted territories. So, I don't hope you ever have to go through what I went through. But if it hasn't happened to you, you can't really relate. You can understand, but you can't really relate. And then the other thing I learned was, don't invest that much money if you're not willing to lose it. Now, is my portfolio higher than it was in 2018 and 2019? Significantly. Do I miss that $12,000? Kinda, but it didn't break my bank to lose that $12,000. And so what I want to make sure to reiterate to those of you still watching is, whoever you're getting advice from on your stock market stuff, your financial whatever, albeit on YouTube or wherever, they don't know your financial situation. They don't know how much you can afford to lose. They don't know how much you have invested. So listening to somebody that knows literally nothing about your situation is dangerous. That's why I personally stay away from anybody that literally tells you to buy a stock or to sell a stock. I don't listen, because they don't know what's going on in my financial life. You will make money in the stock market and you will lose money in the stock market. Those two things are basically the surest things that we have. But the goal is to have your losses be small and have your wins be big. Again, easier said than done. I'm well aware of that. As the sign says, I'm not a financial advisor, and thank you guys for watching.